As we look at the many heroes that have existed across time, two major groups come into focus. The first are the seasoned veterans, those who use their many years of training and experience to tackle an oncoming threat. Over countless battles fought and harsh lessons learned, they are able to conquer all obstacles before them, both with their might and with their mind. The second group don't have such experience. They are the fledglings, the novice adventurers who find themselves in situations far out of their league, and yet somehow, against all odds, they are able to find a way to save those around them. Most of these heroes are quite young, often never going beyond their teenage years, and some are younger still, little more than children. It seems foolhardy, even irresponsible, to ask children to carry such burdens. After all, matters affecting the entire world should be left to those with the skill and wisdom needed to handle such responsibility. Yet, oftentimes, the adults are the ones who fall short, while those who are young, and those who are young at heart, are able to rise against the tides of darkness. Call it fate, destiny, or just clever storytelling, but children have a way of seeing the world that those who have grown up somehow forget. Their purity and innocence give them a perspective that is naive, even silly, but free of hatred, bias, or any preconceived notions of what should be. Embedded in that perspective is a search for happiness that is undimmed by the supposed realities of life. In a world full of anger, hostility, and chaos, perhaps all that is needed to find the way is the pure heart of a child. As Oracle of Ages and Seasons came to a close, the production team of Nintendo and Capcom moved forward with developing another Zelda title, this time for the newly released Game Boy Advance. The project was soon put on hold, however, as resources were diverted to work on the Four Swords games. 2 years later, the team returned to the suspended project and took the Four Swords inspiration with them to create their new game. Now, in general, each Zelda game is designed to be a standalone title. Only the overarching themes of the Zelda universe remain consistent from game to game. Anything else remains free to liberal interpretations and reimaginings. This allows each game to go in whatever direction is best for the game, without having to keep track of an ever-expanding lore and legacy. Nearly anything in one game that has a direct reference to another is usually just a nod or an Easter egg. However, there are multiple instances in which it is specifically stated that one game is directly related to another. For example, Wind Waker is an offshoot of Ocarina of Time, while The Adventure of Link is a direct sequel to The Legend of Zelda. Just as common is Nintendo's tendency to write backwards. A Link to the Past is meant to predate the original Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time is supposed to come before A Link to the Past, and Skyward Sword takes place before them all. With this new title, coming off both Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures, the team again decided to work backwards, creating this time the origin story for Vati and the Four Sword. But instead of looking directly at the ending to this prequel, the introductory monologue only has words for an even older darkness, and a group of mythical creatures called the Picori, bringing a light and a sword to drive it away. The legend has had a great influence on Hyrule, creating, among other things, an annual festival and tournament, with all the festivities overseen by the King and the Princess Zelda, who this year has decided to see it all accompanied by her childhood friend, Link. Yes, her childhood friend. For the first time in the series, you begin the game having a direct relationship with the princess. No longer are you a no-name citizen saving his monarch, or a wandering stranger willing to rescue a maiden. You actually know Zelda. The first section of the game lets you get to know her, and develop a rapport that brief as it is, has never really been there before. Running around the Picori Festival lets you see her happy, carefree nature. And at the end of her wanderings, she passes up her own personal enjoyment to give you a gift. Shield in hand and the princess at your side, you head to Hyrule Castle to deliver your grandfather's sword to the winner of the annual tournament. It doesn't take long to realize that something is amiss, as the winner, Vati, enters with a sinister laugh and proceeds to eliminate all potential threats to his quest for power. The ancient sword is broken, and despite Hyrule's soldiers and your brave attempts, Princess Zelda is turned to stone, and Vati sets off in search of the golden power of legend. In order to restore both the sword and the princess, the king commissions you to find the mythical Picori, who, according to legend, only show themselves to children. As you enter the Minish Woods, the supposed home of the Picori, what you find instead are monsters released by Vati, and in their midst, a hat. Up to this point, you had spent the entire game without one, and now one is literally following you and talking to you. It introduces itself to you as Ezlo, another who had been cursed by Vati's magic. Upon learning of your quest, he graciously volunteers to aid you. Hitching a ride on your head, Ezlo leads you through the forest and quickly identifies something very significant. A stump. A stump that makes the world a whole lot bigger than you thought it was. Bouncing off mushrooms and exiting the portal, you view the world from a minuscule perspective. But as cute as it is having a tiny sprite walking around the general overworld, the true ingenuity of this size change comes as you enter those areas too small for a normal person to enter. From wandering about Hyrule Town to little cracks in the ground, an entirely new world is suddenly laid before you. Looking around your new environment, it's quite impressive how much detail went into the designs, giving everyday objects a completely new purpose. The new perspective changes how you approach practically everything, making the smallest items suddenly very useful or very dangerous. The change in size also lets you interact with a whole new cast of characters, hiding just under your nose. The Picori of legend actually call themselves the Minish, a miniature race of creatures similar to the Borrowers. These tiny people are cute. Their character designs, voices, and happy natures make them almost immediately endearing. They seem fascinated by Hylian life, and the Minish living in Hyrule Castle Town have formed a secret, symbiotic relationship with many of the residents. Seeing inquisitive Minish share books with a researcher, or an entire group aid a cobbler while he naps, shows just how much the Minish and the Hylians actually have in common with each other, and how helping one helps the other just as much. The miniature perspective carries on into the dungeons as you seek the elements that must be infused with the Picori blade. 3 of the dungeons hold to traditional Zelda format and size, with the added danger of sections that you must navigate while in Minish size. However, the 2 more noticeable dungeons take place entirely in miniature, taking the detail of that tiny world view in a new direction. Lily pads and webbing create entirely new obstacles for you to navigate, while the enemies range from slugs and insects normally unnoticed by you, to a quote-unquote normal-sized creature suddenly becoming worthy enough to be considered a legitimate boss. All of this work allows you to step-by-step obtain crystalline essences of earth, fire, water, and wind. Taking the elements and the newly repaired Picori blade to a sanctuary hidden inside Hyrule Castle, you begin to infuse the sacred sword with the element's power, slowly building the Force Sword we've seen before. Unlike the previous games, however, your copies are restricted to spirit forms, brought to life on specific panels located throughout Hyrule. Their time limit and lack of health makes navigating with the clones yet another puzzle for you to solve. But with their ability, you're able to fight hordes of enemies, push larger stone blocks, and unlock the paths to every corner of Hyrule. Unfortunately, the distance between those corners are a bit lacking. Despite the Game Boy Advance's ability to handle enough data to span enormous games and maps, Minish Cap's Hyrule is noticeably small. Although the world of the Minish does add a new dimension to how you approach the world around you, it doesn't really give a true second world like we had in Ocarina of Time or A Link to the Past. Instead, the country is compact, but otherwise it's very complete, with areas flowing seamlessly between one another, and creating environments we'd never really seen before. From the murky swamps of the Castor Wilds, to walking on the clouds above. What this Hyrule lacks in sheer size, however, it makes up for in secrets. Littered all over Hyrule are pieces of pendants called kinstones, said to bring good luck to those who are able to match them to create a whole medallion. A few times, the kinstones are used in-game as fetch quests, encouraging exploration and puzzle solving. But the vast majority of the time, these little items are found in treasure chests, on monsters, pretty much anywhere normal treasure can be found. The matching pieces, meanwhile, are in the possession of practically every sentient being in Hyrule. Pairing up a kinstone unlocks a secret somewhere in Hyrule, revealing treasure chests, secret passages, or unlocking additional content that is otherwise inaccessible. Rarely, if ever, are the secrets essential or powerful, but there's no denying the excitement that comes from finding a match, just to see what little surprise awaits you. Matching up kinstones allows you to interact and learn about every person and Minish around you. As has become somewhat common for the handheld titles, Minish Cap is littered with characters from previous games, spanning almost the entirety of the Zelda library to date, including some notables from Wind Waker, and even the oracles from Seasons and Ages. It can seem kind of lazy, populating supposedly unconnected games with the same characters time and again, but what it does do is stir our memories and pluck our heartstrings. There's no need to form a relationship with these people, because as players, we have one already. It makes Hyrule already feel like home, and consequently pushes us to keep fighting in order to protect it. And it's going to need protecting. While you journey to reforge the Kokori Sword, Vaati is earnestly searching for the light force of legend, something he is certain will grant him ultimate power to conquer and rule the land. Eventually, he enlists aid by possessing the king and ordering the soldiers to search for the light force as well. He hasn't forgotten about you either, and as you and Ezlo finally uncover the secret of the light force's origin, Vaati moves to extract the sacred light residing in Princess Zelda. Hyrule Castle is immediately taken over by Vaati's dark powers, creating a stronghold that is much more difficult than the previous dungeons would have led you to believe. Navigating some difficult puzzles and facing a platoon of Darknuts, all the while working under the impending darkness of Vaati's ritual. In heroic fashion, you're able to interrupt Vaati's spell just in the nick of time. But Vaati will not give up so easily. Vaati himself has both a powerful assortment of spells at his disposal, and actually an impressive, terrifying design, which then grows and changes to the form we recall from Four Swords. But despite the increasing danger, the sorcerer eventually falls to your courage and the newly forged Four Sword. Then, with Vaati's power vanquished, the curse on Ezlo breaks, revealing his true form as a Minish sage. Using Zelda as the focus, Ezlo's wish-granting hat, which had granted Vaati so much power, restores Hyrule Castle and its residents, bringing peace and light back to Hyrule. It's not exactly a deep narrative or complex game, but honestly, it never needed to be. From the very beginning, Minish Cap was a game based in a child's world and seen from a child's perspective. Instead of the edgy, more adult atmosphere we had seen in Ocarina of Time, and would soon see again in Twilight Princess, we were instead given a world with an innocent heart and style that, in many ways, surpassed even Wind Waker. It's sunny, cheerful, and bright, with characters and events that are simply bursting with childlike joy and energy. By making the world of the Minish one that only children could see, it guaranteed that this Zelda adventure could only be truly enjoyed if it was approached as a child. Back when Wind Waker was announced, a common complaint, aside from the graphic style, was how young Link was. We all found adult Link from Ocarina of Time to be so cool, it seemed foolish to revert to such a childish form. But despite rarely getting an official age, Link is always portrayed as being quite young. Never out of his teenage years, and sometimes as young as 9. Even the adult Link is only 16 or 17, which isn't even considered to be a legal adult in most countries. No, the hero is never some experienced veteran. Instead, he's fresh, unproven, and unbound by previous opinion or prejudice. The funny thing about all this is that Zelda games are a lot more childlike than we often want to admit. The characters are larger than life. The mini-games and side quests are cute, sometimes comical affairs. And the overarching story surrounding it all is as innocent and childlike as it gets. We're so focused on the fierce monsters, the intense visual storytelling, and a world that continues to grow as wide as our imaginations, that we often forget that the core of Zelda is a simple message, a continual assurance that light will triumph over darkness. And there's nothing wrong with that. For as dark, twisted, unfair as the real world can sometimes be, we need those simple reminders that there is light if we are willing to look for it. The joy and happiness that is so often right under our noses, if only we have the heart of a child needed to see it. The kind of heart that was needed to fend off evil and wear the Minish Cap. Thanks everyone for coming along in the Minish Cap. As little as this story can be, there's still a lot to be discovered. I'd love it if you would share with me some of your favorite moments in this big world. If you'd like to see my journey in the world of the Minish, along with my friend Maximus, there's a link to the playlist down below. And if you want to check out my other tributes, that link is down there as well. I appreciate all of you willing to see these videos, and your patience as I try to navigate my life while still trying to get these up. If you want to hang around and see what happens next, just subscribe and you'll know when the adventure continues. Join me next time as the line between light and darkness begins to blur, and the world of shadow begins to invade, in The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. See you then.